In 2024, the Korea Aerospace Research Institute or KASA sends a crewed mission to the moon to be part of the countries that have successfully landed on it. Unfortunately, during that mission, all the astronauts die due to a technical glitch that makes the spacecraft explode when it tries to land, leaving everyone in South Korea shocked and disappointed. 5 years later in 2029, South Korea is attempting to send 3 astronauts to the moon again, hoping to regain their reputation. The 3 astronauts are Commander Lee, Cho, and Hu Wong, and they get intense training to prepare for the trip, not wanting a repeat of last time. Before they take off, the astronauts share a few words with the public. Lee says he will decide the name for his unborn baby girl when he is on the mission while looking at the Earth. Cho is going for his wife and son, and Hu Wong is going to fulfill his dead father's dreams. It turns out he is the son of one of the astronauts from the previous mission. When the day comes, the ship is launched successfully, however they soon are hit by solar winds that cause heavy damage, bringing down the electronic control unit and the navigation system. The astronauts have lost contact with the control room and the Minister of Science and Technology has to appear on national television to calm down all the worried citizens while the press just makes it worse with theories of doom. Meanwhile, Lee and Cho are checking the spacecraft from the outside since they believe that they would be able to repair it. Hu Wong, who has limited knowledge about the technology, is getting very paranoid, but his 2 partners tell him to stay calm as they assure him that they have everything under control. The astronauts notice that there is a leak in the fuel tank, and before they can even process this information, there is a huge explosion in which Cho immediately loses his life, but Commander Lee manages to hold on to his hatchet and not get blown away by the explosion. The Space Research Center gets communications with the ship back only for a few minutes and soon they lose it again, but they become aware that they cannot read Cho's vitals. Hu Wong desperately insists on trying to go out to help, but Lee points out that opening the hatch will only kill him. Lee realizes that he will not be able to make it out of there alive, and in his last moments, he asks Hu Wong to reboot the full system power so that he can get the communications on and makes him promise he will return safely. Hu Wong screams as he watches Commander Lee open his hatch and disappear into oblivion forever. Moments later, communications are rebooted and a devastated Hu Wong appears on the screen to deliver the bad news. The KASA director tells him to wait while they look for a solution, and the minister panics, not wanting to lose another mission. The scientists discuss their options and accept they have no choice but to bring back the director of the last mission because he designed most of their equipment and protocols. The previous director is Kim, who is currently with intern Han Biel on a mountain doing some hunting because he has been staying away from KASA after he failed the last mission. Nowadays he works for an observatory. The animals they are after run away when the KASA helicopter suddenly appears above them, and they take the talk to the observatory, where Kim immediately refuses to come back. However, he changes his mind when he learns that Hu Wong is the son of one of the astronauts from the last mission. In the control room, the scientists are getting worried because the temperature in the ship is getting really low. As the minister starts to panic again, Kim arrives and directs Hu Wong on how to make only one thruster move the ship into lunar orbit. The plan is a success, and as the temperature rises in the spacecraft, it also starts spinning in orbit, which is much safer. Then Kim tells Hu Wong to rest while they look for a solution to bring him back, and a confused Hu Wong asks the control room who he is talking to. When Hu Wong hears the name, he immediately has flashbacks of his father's funeral and Kim's presence in it. This causes him to reach for the other astronauts' family photos, knowing exactly how they may be feeling now. In the meantime, Kim calls his ex-wife Moon Young, who is now working at NASA. Unfortunately, she informs him that NASA refuses to help, seeing the situation as a lost cause. After hanging up, Kim is found by Han Biel, who informs him that everyone is panicking because Hu Wong is separating the lander without permission. Kim rushes to talk to Hu Wong to say this is a bad idea, but Hu Wong refuses to listen. He doesn't want to put his life in Kim's hands because he failed to save his father, and he has already made his decision. He will land on the moon at any cost for the astronauts who had lost their lives, for his father, and for South Korea. As the South Korean citizens and the press go crazy over the news, Han Biel tells Kim of the chance of a meteor shower, and Kim asks her to keep an eye on it while he works on a plan for repairs. Meanwhile, the scientists try their best to guide Hu Wong, who is depending on autopilot to do this. Kim can't stop thinking of all the work he did with the previous mission and the day he met a much younger Hu Wong, terrified that this landing will fail like last time. Everyone gets nervous when the lander begins gaining speed, but thankfully it lands successfully. People in South Korea celebrate, and when Hu Wong finally steps onto the moon's surface, he takes his fellow astronauts' uniforms plus a picture of the crew to place them on the surface. He also sets up the South Korean flag. Afterward, he goes out on the rover to fulfill the mission of collecting samples while the drone keeps track of the surroundings. Kim discusses options with the scientist team to repair the system while the South Korean president appears to give a speech, desperately asking NASA to help them bring Hu Wong back. Moon Young tries to convince the NASA higher-ups, but they refuse because of the possible meteor shower and say Moon Yoon's judgment is blurred by her feelings for her ex-husband. At that moment, Han Biel sees some worrisome readings on her tablet and rushes to tell Kim that NASA is correct, the meteor shower is coming too close to the moon. Back to Hu Wong, he is proud to report that he has collected all the samples including ice from underneath the moon's surface. He also thinks that the readings must have made a mistake because he has been watching sky activity and nothing appeared on the radar. However, soon the area starts shaking and the meteors begin falling around Huang, sending him flying. The scientists order him to get inside the lander quickly and Huang tries to escape on the rover, but a particularly big meteor lands and creates an explosion that gets the vehicle stuck inside a crater. Against the director's wishes, Kim asks a scientist to reset the spacecraft's module system with a new code he's designed, which effectively repairs the module and brings back power to the ship. Meanwhile, Huang calls for his drone, which he uses to lift himself out of the crater. He quickly runs among the falling meteors and manages to get inside the lander just in time. The lander takes off successfully, and the next step is to connect it to the command module. They must depend on autopilot again to do the docking, and thankfully it goes well, but before Huang can transfer to the main ship, a meteor hits the spacecraft, destroying a big part of it and sending it into a speedy fall. Kim tells Huang to change to manual mode, but the lander is shaking too much and he can't reach the controls. Suddenly Huang accidentally inhales ammonia and starts feeling dizzy, so he reaches for his helmet, but it is too late. Huang passes out, the lander crashes, and the control room loses all communications. The computer can't find Huang's vitals either, and after 4 hours of failed attempts to reconnect, Huang is officially declared dead. While news outlets cover yet another failed mission, Kim returns home, and because he cannot deal with another failure, he tries to self-delete, but Han Biel stops him just in time. At that moment, Kim gets a message from Moon Young telling him that Huang is still alive, which she knows because NASA's station intercepted the radio messages that Huang is trying to send to his own space station. Moon Young also gives Kim the code to access the frequency, so he and Han Biel rush to grab some old equipment from the observatory and manage to hear Huang's SOS message. Han Biel immediately begins recording it while Kim asks Huang for his status, learning that he doesn't have much power or oxygen left and that the meteor shower is still going. Kim tells him to stay in the lander while he finds a way to help, and at that moment, a helicopter appears. It turns out Han Biel called an emergency service saying Kim was dying of a heart attack just so he would be picked up quickly. The helicopter takes Kim back to the CASA headquarters while Han Biel posts Huang's SOS message on YouTube, which immediately goes viral. While Huang does his best to take care of his wounds with whatever he has available, Han Biel keeps him company by talking to him through the comms. However, she only ends up annoying him when she overanalyzes him as if she knew him just because she read a few online articles. Thanks to the audio going viral, people all over the world are supporting Huang and pressuring NASA into sending help. The NASA higher-ups want to know who leaked the information and immediately get suspicious of Moon Young, but before they can check her phone, they receive a call from the White House. After lots of work from CASA, they manage to get communications working with the lander again. However, the minister is not happy, saying there is no point in reviving Huang in the eye of the public if they will kill him again later because they cannot bring him back. Suddenly the meteor shower begins getting worse and Kim wants to move Huang to a safer place, he just doesn't know where. At that moment, good news arrived from the USA. The White House has ordered NASA to help Huang, which is already reaching news outlets all over the world too. The American lunar station and Moon Young get in contact with CASA to start planning the details of the rescue mission, but at the NASA office, Moon Young is being kicked out and sent to the disciplinary committee. They only are allowing her to stay for this last mission to look good for the White House. After Moon Young warns them they will only have one try to pull this off, the American station gets on the way so that they can dock with the South Korean ship. Huang tries to launch the lander again, but after lots of shaking, it unfortunately fails to take off because it doesn't have enough space and is not aligned correctly. Kim tries to tell Huang to abort, but it is too late. The lander falls on the ground and begins rolling around for several minutes until it falls into a crater again and the docking port is destroyed. The American station announces they cannot maintain the velocity and standby anymore, so Moon Young has no choice but to cancel the rescue mission. A desperate Kim tries to give Huang a few ideas to get the lander going, but Huang is given up and powers down all systems, including the oxygen supply. Kim tries to tell Huang not to be like his father, but Huang uses the moment to make a confession. He has seen the truth on his father's will. It turns out that his father knew a month before the first moon mission that the engine had faults and yet decided to go on the mission anyway because he was that hungry for success. However, Kim interrupts him, saying he doesn't know the full story. Kim asks Huang to forgive his father because it wasn't his fault. A day before the launch, his father did tell Kim about the faulty engine and asked for a 2-month delay. But since the chances of an accident were minimal, a furious Kim went ahead with the launch anyway because the mission had been postponed so many times that he could not do it again. Crying his heart out, Kim begs Huang to come back. Everyone is starting to lose hope, but suddenly the computers announce the oxygen supply in the ship is back on. Huang has finally forgiven his dad and is ready to go, so he asks for directives. Meanwhile, Moon Young also hears the whole thing and decides to ignore orders to get in contact with CASA again and make a new plan since she will be fired anyway. Kim is worried about the broken dock, but Moon Young trusts he can find a solution. Kim rushes back to the control room and together with the scientists, they guide Huang to go outside and manually activate the thrusters. Now that he is in an area with more room, this allows him to launch the command module successfully. Meanwhile, Moon-young locks herself in her office and establishes contact with the astronauts at the American station. She tells them that there is no directive from the government, but she appeals to them by reminding them that they are all from different countries yet they are all astronauts, so a call for help from a fellow astronaut should not be ignored because of nationalities. Her call is interrupted when the higher-ups finally break into the room and take her away. Back to Huang, he notices that the ship is reaching the brighter side of the moon but that landing will be impossible, so he makes a plan. After grabbing all the memories from the other astronauts, he straps the drone around his body. Kim orders him to open the hatch and jump, and after lots of hesitation and dread, Huang steps off the launcher. He floats around for several minutes and once he is close enough to the surface, he activates the drone, which shakes him around a bit until they hit the ground. Communications are suddenly lost and everyone in the control room assumes the worst. At that moment, the American station announces they are coming closer to execute the rescue. Thankfully, the drone is still working and manages to record Huang's face when he wakes up, so he hears the message and manages to send his coordinates to the rescuers. Moments later, images of Huang being taken care of by the American crew reach every news outlet and everyone around the world celebrates. After this success, the CASA director wants Kim to come back to his job, but Kim refuses and leaves to return to his observatory. When Huang returns to South Korea, the minister receives him with excitement, pretending he always believed in him. The country considers him a hero, but after a mild speech, Huang concentrates on carrying the memory of his fellow astronauts. He visits the families and gives them all the items he rescued from the ship, telling Lee's wife that the commander had already chosen a name for the baby and Cho's son that his dad is now on the moon. A month later, it is announced that the International Space Committee is allowing South Korea to join as the 9th country. It is also revealed that Moon-young has become the first female director of NASA, which was an order sent from the White House. Meanwhile, in the observatory, Kim is receiving a teacher and her class of excited kids to learn about space. One of the employees is dressed as an astronaut to teach them how the suit works, but when he removes his helmet, Kim is shocked to see it is actually Huang. Both men share a salute and respect for what they went through together. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.